back to season 2 of the Positive Mindset podcast. Out for a little walk today in the beautiful spring countryside, a balmy 12 degrees for the middle of April here in the UK, so that's nice. Today's conversation is with Danielle Kettlewell. Now, Danielle is an author, a motivational speaker, a coach, healer, and to top it all off, she is an Olympian. And Danielle's story that got her to the Olympic Games is a really interesting one, one where her focus on her mindset managed to get her there without giving away the entire story. There was an accident involved that meant that she had to give up her sport for a little while. A very interesting and strange turn of events occurred whereby in the space of 4 years, she spun it round, she made it onto the Australian swimming team, and she competed at the Olympics. So it's a really interesting story. Now, Danielle has written a book, The Unlikely Olympian, which is fantastic. Links in the description if you'd like to buy that, and I would highly recommend it. It's great. And our conversation took place on the 17th of April, 2023. So sit back, grab a little drink if you fancy, and enjoy my conversation with the very, very inspirational Danielle Kettlewell. Hello, Danielle.
Hello, Matt. Nice to be here with you.
Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. I've seen you lots on Instagram and Facebook and everything else, but to actually see you and talk to you face to face is lovely. Yes.
I hope I live up to all of that.
I wondered, almost as a way of introduction, really, if you would tell us how you would describe yourself and how you would describe what you do right now.
Great question. So, it's funny because I was actually speaking to a friend of mine about this the other day, when I think even if, you could call yourself a quote unquote seasoned professional at what you do, sometimes you still have moments when you're just like, who am I? Right? It becomes a really existential question. But I'll just give you the basics and also know that I am so much more than this. So I am an Olympian. I am an author. I'm a speaker, and I'm a coach. I work primarily online at the moment with human beings from around the world that are willing and ready to work on their mindset, their self-worth, their self-belief to make powerful, positive changes within their life. I became an Olympian through a pretty crazy story, which I speak about in my book called The Unlikely Olympian. And so I was actually a synchronized swimmer with the Australian synchronized swimming team for 5 years. And I went to the 2016 Olympic Games, which still I have moments where I'm like, I don't even know how I did that. That was crazy. And I competed at 3 world championships. I got to make history in my sport, and I retired in 2019 when I set out on this mission really to share my story, to share my knowledge, and to help other people around the world. Because as you would know, Matt, contribution is one of the most fulfilling things, right? When we know that we're doing something for something bigger than ourselves. And being an athlete was an incredible journey. I was in the sport of synchronized swimming actively for 18 years, and one of the greatest journeys of my life. But it is really, really nice to be in the work that I am in now, because athletes have to be very selfish, which is, right? You got to focus on yourself. You got to focus on your health. It's all about you, which is amazing and needed. But now I've kind of turned the tables, and I'm helping others.
You did touch on it in your opening bit about mindset. And of course, the people that listen to this podcast, they will know we touch on nurturing and creating positive mindset. Often I talk about golf, but it's not just about that. It's about how you take that positive mindset into your life, into your business, into your careers, whatever that might be, your relationships. And I know you're a huge advocate of mindset in general. What does that term, mindset or positive mindset, what does that mean to you, and what impact has that had on your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think one of the things that I wish all of us were kind of out of the womb taught as soon as we start having thoughts is that not all of the thoughts in our mind are true. And a lot of the time, our mind is not going to be very supportive of what we're wanting to create. And so it is absolutely 100% normal to have unsupportive beliefs, unsupportive thoughts, unkind thoughts. But I think that a lot of us walk around this, right? A lot of us walk around in this world and this life, and we think that we're the only ones, right? Yeah. We're like I'm the one of 8 billion who is very mean to myself, who doesn't think that I'm enough, who have mean thoughts going through my head. What we're taught in school, we're taught math, we're taught sciences, we're taught geography, we're taught history. We're not really taught until more recently in the education. But I know probably when you and me were in school, this was not a conversation around really how to deal with your mind and your mental health and your mental well-being. And I think mindset is so incredibly important because it's the ability to realize that we have power over our mind, right? Even that there's going to be thoughts that come in and out, but we also can drive the car. But if we don't drive the car, it will drive itself. And sometimes it can drive itself into places and lands that are not supportive to where we're wanting to go. And so, what I really believe mindset is just this way of cultivating our mind to be in alignment with where we're wanting to go in our life. And yes, sometimes that's positive, but also, we go through challenges in life. That is normal, right? We're going to face adversity. We are all here for a limited time on this planet. We are all going to deal with death in some way, somehow. And so it's not only being able to, have the positive mindset, but it's also be able to navigate the hard times, the times when, we want to give up, the times when it feels really hard, the times when we get stuck in our mind and our head. And a lot of this really stemmed from realizing that, my whole precipice of my book is around being the unlikely Olympian. I wasn't the most talented, but I really used my mind to get me to where I wanted to be. And I believe that that is so important and so underrated for almost everyone in society. We don't realize how much of an asset our mind is when we get it on our side. And so that's really what I'm so passionate about, helping as you are as well, helping human beings, because it just makes a world of a difference.
I was also very keen to talk a little bit about your early life, if that's all right.
Of course.
The pre-Olympic bit and those limiting self-beliefs. Obviously, I've read your book, so I know some insights there.
Yeah.
But how you dealt with those and how you got to that point of the Olympics.
Yeah. So, I think every single human being in this planet has limiting self-beliefs, unless you're superhuman in some way, and I think it's quite normal. And also, one of the things that I think is so important in the conversation of limiting self-beliefs is I believe in everything in the world, there's polarity, right? So there's a light side of it and there's a dark side of it. The dark side of limiting self-beliefs is that they can hold us back. They can get us into, negative mindset spirals, but also the light side of it is that they can also fuel us because, one of my biggest belief systems that I'm still, and I've come so far, but I still know that I face at times, right? It'll always come up when you start to face adversity or your mind starts to get a bit vulnerable, is that I feel like I'm not enough. And that also is my greatest gift, because if I didn't feel like I wasn't enough, there also wouldn't be that opposite of that fire inside of me to prove to myself that I was, to be like, what, even though that this is spiraling in my head, I want to take action to be like, you can do this no matter what is going through your head. If we start to look back on our life, we also realize we've expanded our level of awareness, obviously, as we've aged. So it's not like I was walking around when I was 8, 9, 10 and be like, I'm not enough, right? It's kind of like a subconscious belief system. I felt I was very shy, which funny enough, when I was younger, I was really insecure. I was very just uncomfortable in my body. I really was kind of like the quiet girl. I was the nice girl. I was the people pleaser. I was the one that kind of didn't have any boundaries, the one that was just willing to put down her walls for basically anyone. And because I thought that doing those things, I thought that being nice, right? I thought that being the people pleaser was going to help me feel like I was enough, because maybe if people liked me more, then I would feel it, internally. And one of the greatest journeys I think of almost every human in this world's life is the realization that, whatever we seek externally is not going to feel that great unless we find it internally first. Because no matter how much I seeked for other people to like me, I had to like myself. Even though I had all these different limiting self-beliefs, I also did this sport of synchronized swimming. And, this is where we might differ, but I think synchronized swimming is the hardest sport in the world, personally. With endurance, with flexibility, with basically doing what everyone else does 50% of the time without breathing and upside down, there is not a lot of other things you can compare to it.
No.
And so, right? And so I was in this sport where I was faced with all of this adversity, all of these challenges, and I also wasn't the best. I had a great attitude. I loved it. I was very passionate, but I was like the least likely to succeed, right? That's what I kind of give myself that title, because I just really, no one would have pegged, and I think we know this in sports. You can be like, oh, I put my bets on that this person's going to be someone someday. Like, that wasn't me, right? And the reason why I always emphasize that is because sometimes when we see these conversations around people that are Olympians or have achieved greatness in their sport, they go, oh, well, they were just talented, right? They just kind of went down the path and they were talented. And I think more of us in this world can resonate with not being the most talented and not being the most gifted. And that's where the power of your mind comes in. And so I realized at a young age, I was like, okay, well, I'm never going to be the most talented. I'm never going to be the most flexible. I'm never going to have the perfect body shape for this sport. But you know what I can do? I can be a great team player. I can have a great attitude, and I can work on my mindset and self-awareness. And so I made those three things my biggest asset in my sport. And through a crazy journey of events, like, I really believe that is, a plus opportunity and plus taking risks is what got me to the Olympics.
Could you tell us a bit about that then? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
From that point, how on earth?
How, right? People are so confused. They're like, what? So, like, what happened? In 2012, I was in Vancouver, Canada at the time. And, being in the UK, you remember that was the year of the London Olympics. And I was watching synchronized swimming on the TV. And I think, Kate Middleton came to watch the synchronized swimming then as well. And I remember watching it and I was just like in awe. 4 years later, I would be competing at the games myself. I'd be like, are you from an alternate universe? Like, what are you talking about? There's no way, right? Seemed like there was no possibility of that for me. And so I went throughout my sport of synchronized swimming until I was in grade 12. And that was really the end of the line for me in Canada. I got the opportunity to compete at the Canadian National Championships, but for some scope, like, I was not even in the top 100 of athletes. There was no way I would have made it on the Canadian team. I wasn't good enough, and there was no trajectory for me to go. Unfortunately, our sport is a little bit different, where it's a lot harder to do recreationally because you need a team, and it is very complicated. And so I retired and I went to university, and I stayed involved. I coached. I've coached synchronized swimming for about 7 or 8 years in total now, and I stayed involved because I loved it. And I think that's so important, at whatever age, if you love something, no matter your talent, just stay involved in it, because if it brings you passion, if it brings you light, that's what matters. And throughout that journey, I started doing a training on a master's team. A master's team, it was funny. A master's team is like what people say for oldies. I was like 19 at the time, right? So it wasn't quite an oldie, but it was an opportunity for me and my friends to get together like for 2 days a week and train. And we put together a routine, and we wanted to go to a big competition. And one day we were doing this thing in synchronized swimming we called highlights. And so that is when you basically build a human pyramid. You egg beater up to the surface, because we never touch the bottom. You create like a human spring, and someone jumps up, and then somebody does a flip usually, and then lands in the water. And keep in mind, like, this isn't like American football. We have no helmets, we have no gear. We're wearing a bathing cap and a bathing suit. And so my teammate went up and she slipped and she landed straight on my head. Yeah. And in that moment, my teammates pulled me up from the water. It wasn't actually like, it is actually, concussions is one of the main injuries in synchronized swimming, unfortunately, which people don't realize. And my teammates brought me up to the surface. I kind of like shook it off, as you kind of do. You're like, I'm tough, I'm fine. But when I was driving home that night, I started to feel really nauseous. I had a really bad headache behind my eye, and I just knew something was off. I actually had a midterm the next day, and I was trying to study for my midterm, and I couldn't read. Like, I didn't understand what the words on the paper said. Like, I knew it was English, but I was like, it wasn't computing. And so I went to the doctor and was diagnosed with a concussion. And in sports, we just brush it off, right? Oh, they're fine. They just have a concussion. But
we certainly used to. Yeah, we certainly used to.
Yeah, it's starting to get, the conversation is starting to get better, but it's very similar to struggling with your mental health. You have no cuts, you have no bruises, you have no blood, you have no stitches, usually, but something's off in your brain. It's kind of shaking my fist at the universe, being like, why did this happen to me? I had to drop out of university. The day after my 21st birthday, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and she at the time got a Facebook message from the assistant national team coach of the Australian synchronized swimming team, who this coach, I know this seems like people go, how did this happen? It's a very small world in our sport. This coach actually used to work in Vancouver, at where we were, and she had moved to Australia, and she was working with the Australian team there. And this was in 2013 at this time in the story. And the 2012 Olympics obviously had finished, and a lot of the team had retired, and they're wanting to build up the team again. My friend, funny enough, her parents are Australian. Her father's Australian, and she has dual citizenship. And so the coach said, any chance you'd want to come here and try out for the team? And as a friend, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You got to do this. This is so good. You got to go. Like, I think as friends, we cheer other people on so easily, but not often ourselves. And after about 15 minutes, she looks at me and she goes, well, Danielle, like, you could do this too. So my parents are both from Australia. They were born in Sydney. They immigrated to Canada.
I was going to say, yes. Yeah.
In 1972. And I was like, no, there's no way. Look at me. I'm concussed. I was never the most talented. Like, I'm out of shape. Like, there's just no way. And that was a really pivotal moment for me, because it was the opportunity that, I go left or I go right. And once you go, there's no going back. How do I want to look back at this point in my life in hindsight and see how I acted, reacted, stood up, back down, who I was in this moment? And I realized that even though it terrified me, even though I was so scared of everyone judging me, because I knew that they would, like, who did I think that I was? Even though I was so scared of judgment, even though I was so scared of failure, even though I was so scared of falling flat on my face, I was more afraid of wondering what if. And that thought, that decision changed the trajectory of my life. Because as much as I was terrified, I chose myself. I chose a ridiculously small chance possibility. I chose, like, the chances of me making it just seemed absolutely astronomically against me. I had a whole laundry list of things not in my favor, but I said, screw it. Let's just see if we can make this happen. And that was the beginning of a journey that led me to recovering from my concussion, moving to Australia, and my entire life turned upside down.
What was that whole experience like?
It was funny. The first training camp I went to, so the kind of process of how it worked is we went to a training camp and you would trial. And so the first training camp I went to was about 6 weeks after I got that opportunity. I flew to Perth, Australia, which I didn't know anyone or anything there. I'd never been there. It's very far away, especially from where you are. And I went to a training camp. There were 16 girls. But in that moment, I looked around these 16 girls and I go, okay, I'm probably the bottom of ranks here. But my chances just went from 1 in 8 billion to like 1 in 16. So I'm going to take that as a win, right? Like, I have a 1/16th chance of getting on the team now. Okay, I can work with that. And I was very aware, and I think this is, especially, I love talking to people that like have athlete mindsets, because I was very aware of the things that I was not good at. And I think that's what's really important, because I think in sports, sometimes people can have big egos, right? And they don't want to admit what they're good at, and they're not good at separating themselves as an athlete or a player and themselves as a human being. And so people take critique very personally because they think that it's a personal thing. But if you're an athlete and if you want to improve yourself, you need to create a different archetype for who you are. And so I realized that I was like, in that moment, okay, it's like, I'm a good human being, and there's a lot of things that I'm not very good at. Okay, this is one of the things that, and I'm really passionate about sharing is that level of self-awareness, and realizing what I wasn't good at, and also realizing what I was good at. I didn't have a lot of hard skills that I was good at, like technical skills, but I had soft skills, like my mindset, my self-awareness, my ability to be a good team player, my ability to listen to my coach, my ability to take on feedback. I was like, okay, I can improve that. I'll take that. I'll take whatever I got, because it's not flexibility. It's not all the technical skills. It's not all of this. And so I really did this, a lot of self-awareness work around, okay, how can I improve what I'm really good at and turn up the light on that? And how can I continue to work on the stuff that I'm not good at? There was so much struggle, so much hard work that went into it. So much, like stress as well, so much training. Synchronized swimmers train about 6 days a week, 6 hours a day in the water, 2, 3, 4 hours on land, right? Name another sport that trains that much. Not a lot exists, right? It's funny, this tangent story. I went at the Olympic Games. I met this guy who was a shooter. And once you're at the Olympics, it's quite funny because people go, oh, it's just your first Olympics? That's nice. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's just like the pinnacle of my life, but I've only been once. And so I meet this guy, he's a shooter, and this is his fourth Olympics. And it's really interesting in the Olympic Games because you're asking all these other athletes about their training and stuff and all that. And he starts telling me he's probably like, I think he's a huge guy. He's probably like 6'3". He's probably in his like mid 30s. And I'm like, oh yeah, so like, what's your training like? And he goes, oh yeah, no, I train 3 hours a week. And I'm like, sorry, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 3 hours. He works full time. He just trains 3 hours a week, and then he takes time off to go to the Olympics. And I'm like, okay, well, wow. I can see why he went 4 times.
Yeah.
What he does is amazing. He shoots from 50 meters away at a coin that is like a 50-cent coin. Like the accuracy of that is incredible. Like I couldn't do that. So to each their own, but there was a lot of training. There was a lot of hardship. And one of the biggest things that was such an asset to me was, we got to work with sports psychologists. And that was really what started to change the game for me and started to build my muscle of self-awareness. And we had this sports psychologist who was incredible. He actually had been at kind of the forefront of sports psychology. He's originally from the UK and ended up working with the Australian team. And he'd been to 10 Olympic Games. So just do the math on that. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of Olympic Games, 10 Olympic Games as a sports psych. And so one of the things he said to me, he had about 100 Olympic medals under his belt. So like he'd work with athletes about 100 Olympic medals. And one of the things he said to us was, you can tell the difference between someone that makes it to the Olympics and someone that doesn't. And one of the things he said is that number one, they journal every day. And number two, they go to training with an intention. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm taking in everything right at this point. I'm like, give me whatever. If they drink coffee at 3 a.m, I don't know, I'll do it. Like, I'll do whatever. Right? Give me all the hacks. Yeah. And so I took that and I ran with it, and journaling became one of my biggest tools. Every single day I would go, what are my 3 intentions? What am I improving at? I would write all the things that I was working on. And then I would go to training with an intention of working on 3 things. This wasn't from my coach. This was me. Yep. And then at the end of every day, I would reflect on how I trained, how I did on my intentions, and what I need to continue to improve on. A very key thing that was between the athletes that made it and the athletes that didn't make it. And you will see this in life as well. You will see this in life, you will see this in business, is one of the things that people lacked when they didn't make it is they lacked self-awareness. Yeah. They thought they couldn't take on criticism because they had too big of an ego. They thought maybe they were the best, and they didn't have a level of self-awareness to allow themselves to improve. We're getting feedback all of the time. And what would happen, and you want feedback, right? You want to get corrections because then you improve your skill, your game, whatever it may be. And I had to realize, kind of like I said at the beginning, I was like, when I went to the pool, and like if you go to the field, the golf course, it's like there is Danielle the athlete, and then there's Danielle the human. Danielle the human walks out of the door, and she has to realize that my coach doesn't not personally like me. That person is left at the door, but Danielle the athlete is wanting to improve. So Danielle the athlete is going to be able to get corrections, get feedback, realize that I'm not going to be great all the time. And totally depending on your coach too, is you also have to, one of the things that I realized, and I think coaching, this is a sports coaching, it has changed so much over the past 40, 50 years, because I think back in the 70s, 80s, it was really about berating and like being unkind and beating people down. Yeah, and now
only the best would make it. Only the most resilient ones would make it. Yeah.
And now I think the psychology of coaching has changed, where it's like positive feedback actually really works with people, right? And so I've had so many coaches over my years, and some would be better and some were fired and weren't that great. But it's like I had to give myself that positive feedback as well, because I'm the type of person I think with anyone, like if you get corrections about feedback of everything that you have to do and nothing that is good all day long, like that can get you down. And so one of the things I do every day in my reflection is like, I would go, what are 3 things that I did really well today? And just that practice, realizing, there's a lot of stuff that I can improve, but there's a lot of stuff that I did really well. And I think athletes need to do that more, because once you start to build that up, that's when you start to build up your kind of muscle of realizing, hey, I got this, like I'm good at this, I feel confident in myself. And confidence goes a long way in sport. I was actually on a team that qualified Australia for the 2016 games, but I still had to individually qualify myself for the team. And so one of the things we had to do is we had to learn 2 spots in a routine. And for the brain, it's a really challenging mental thing. And one of the things that I would do, and this loops back into our conversation, is I actually worked on this with my sports psychologist, because I was like, how can I get into the mindset of today I'm training this position and tomorrow I'm training this position? Is I do a simple like physical thing that would get me in the energy of it. And the way that this could work for your listeners as well is like, if you're going to the golf course, it's like, what can you do to get yourself in that, okay, I'm Matt the athlete today. And so what I would do is, we wear bathing cap. And so I would put my hair up one way if I was in swimming the routine in the one position. I would put my hair up a different way if I was swimming the routine in the other position. That simple act is like doing the physical thing to get my mind in the mental space of I'm wearing this hat today. It's like I'm wearing the purple hat versus I'm wearing the blue hat, right? And that was huge for me, because that would be just a very, very simple thing where I tie my hair up in a certain way before I put my cap on to go, okay, I'm being this person today. If you can do something that gets you in the zone, right? Then once you get there, you're going to be in a much better state, right? It doesn't actually start when you hit the first ball. It doesn't start when you dive in the pool. It starts 5 hours before that.
It's like, we work with people who want to improve themselves. They want to get better, in inverted commas, at something, at some aspect of their life. And for me, with the golf, if you want to get better, your pre-game routine, not just your pre-shot, your pre-game routine is important. Have you got all your stuff ready? The professionals will have full-on visualization techniques the night before, the morning of. They'll play the entire round, the perfect round, in their head, in the shower, when they're going down for breakfast, in the car on the way. They're visualizing, they're preparing their mind and their body for what they're about to do.
And I think it's really good. One of my sports psychs said, it's like turning on a dimmer light. You know how you turn on a dimmer light and it obviously turns on slowly. And so what he would say is, like, when you're heading to the pool in the morning, when you are going to training or you're going to the competition, you just slowly turn on the dimmer light. So by the time you get to the pool and you dive in the pool, you're fully on. Obviously, like if you're eating your breakfast, you're not going to be like, I'm ready to go. But you're going to be starting to turn the light on.
Absolutely.
So you're getting in the zone, because like it's these little things. Visualization is massive. Like, it is huge. As well, the science that they have done around visualization is incredible, because the mind doesn't know the difference between you physically doing it and you visualizing it, right?
No.
And also realizing that people visualize in different ways, right? You're going to visualize it, and neither is necessarily bad, but sometimes people visualize like looking at themselves on a TV screen, and sometimes you visualize through your own eyes, and it's good to practice both things at the same time. And I think that we can get so into this mindset as well, where people are like, well, what's the right way? And we have to realize that it's not necessarily the right way. It's the way that works for you, right? I say to my clients, I love journaling. It's not going to be for everyone, but do something, get yourself in the zone, right? It's kind of like the intention around it. And so I think that I don't know if they've done studies, but like there really isn't, it's not necessarily like one's better and one's worse, but I find it's really cool to alternate, because then you kind of expand your reality visualization, kind of like what I said with my hair, but just doing a physical thing. Like, sometimes I do a physical thing to get me in the zone. Like, we wear nose clips, these funny little things that make our nose look like this, but like, sometimes it'd be, okay, I put on my nose clip, I'm in the zone, right? It's like, or like I squeeze my wrist, or I'm in the zone, right? Like I do something that gets me in the zone, and that would kind of I find that those physical things that stimulate the mind were also really powerful to get me into that energy.
On the actual Olympic experience, I didn't know if you wanted to just tell us a little bit about the literal experience, because many of our listeners, I would imagine, haven't been to the Olympics.
It's interesting when you look forward to something so much. And, I had watched the Olympics for years. I've been an Olympic fan, Winter and Summer Olympics for years. I had this funny realization going to the Olympics when I realized I had made the team and I was going, that I wasn't going to be able to watch the Olympics on TV because I was going to be at the Olympics. And I was a bit disappointed about that, which is funny. It was a bit of a joke. But like it's a whole nother world when you're actually there. It was really fascinating because you elevate and this is where the mindset of it was fascinating because, you know, we leave Australia, we're like, you're an Olympian, you're going to the Olympic Games, you feel pretty good about yourself, right? You're like wearing your Olympic gear, you're going on the plane, like people are asking, everyone's cheering you on. You walk into the Olympic Village, you're one of 10,000 Olympians. Like, you're like, oh, okay, well, now I feel average again. Like, it's kind of like weird, like you're the average of the elite. And then, like I said before, it was like, oh, it's just your first Olympics. So that's nice. You know,
so
and
so picking order. Yeah.
There's still kind of that hierarchy, funny enough. There's a real respect for everyone's sport. And so it was really cool because not a lot of other competitions or places that you go to do you go to multi-sporting events. And so, you know, in actually aquatics, we go to Worlds. And so Worlds has diving, swimming, synchro, water polo, high diving, open water swimming. So we go to multi-sport competitions, but not a lot of times, like the Olympics is kind of like the only one, or Commonwealth Games, right? And so it was really cool to be able to have conversations with other athletes and learn about how they train, like what their experience was like. And what I found is there was a real general just level of respect. And then also, like at the Olympic Games, we are given 2 full suitcases full of Adidas gear, like, and you can only wear that. Like, other than your underwear, basically you can only wear exactly what they give you, because what's interesting about the Olympics too is it is a marketing thing, right? Like, you are a walking, talking advertisement for, we were representing Adidas, other people representing Nike, other, you know, all these different brands. And there was really cool aspects to that, and like bizarre, like in the Olympics, there's McDonald's for free for everyone, and like of all the things that athletes want to eat, it's McDonald's for free. And, you know, in the village as well, it's so bizarre. There's no currency, like there's no money exchange. Everything's free there in the village. Like there's vending machines full of Gatorade and Coke and like every drink you can imagine, and you can just get whatever you want. You can get whatever you want, food. And it's a funny thing that I learned is, pins are like the going currency. So you get Olympic pins. There has like every country gets these really cool pins, but they're quite valuable. And the only way you can kind of get things done is like people kind of stockpile pins, because you can kind of like bribe the cleaner to like get you more towels if you give them a pin. Like, so you move out of this world of money, right? Because everyone's currency is totally different. It doesn't it doesn't matter. And everything's free and taken care of. And you move into this world of like Olympic pins, which is really cool, and trading and all of that. But the actual like competing itself was fascinating, because we had to train for 2 weeks leading up to actually officially competing in the games. And we competed in our Olympic venue for 2 weeks leading up. So just imagine you practice on the same golf course every day for 2 weeks to the golf course that you're going to compete at. And so it was cool because we got to really get used to the venue and really get used to what it was like, you know, our kind of process and our routine and everything like that. And this bizarre world had to kind of manifested where I just had to realize that everything was normal. When you go, because you have to be in the zone, and even though you're in the most bizarre of circumstances, people are walking around with gold medals. I met the Prince and Princess of Denmark. Like, you see celebrities, you see famous people, there's cameras everywhere, there's reporters everywhere. You have to exist in this world where everything's normal, right? Because if you're freaking out with excitement every day, you're not in the zone, right? And so it has to be normal that you see all these people. It has to be normal that there's cameras everywhere. It has to be normal that there's reporters everywhere. Like, and so you enter this whole other world to get you into this zone. And that was kind of weird, but also cool looking back at like the mindset you had to shift into. And even, you know, we had to, like, when we went out there and competed our one routine, right, we had to be like, no, this is just normal. This is just another time that we swim this routine. You have to compete it, and you have to train at that level every single day. And this is just another time where you train at that level. And that's kind of like the mindset that you have to get into. And so, of course, when I was going out to compete, of course, I was so nervous. You know, we get ready and you have the cameras and my family's there and all the things going, but you just have to go, I know, you know what you're going to do, right? Everything is so dialed in. I could have done it in my sleep backwards at that point, but I'm like, I'm just going to go do it again. Just like I did yesterday, just like I did this morning. keep it normal, because when
Right.
you do that, that's actually how you perform at your best. I got to walk in the opening ceremony, and a lot of athletes don't actually get to walk in the opening ceremony because
Oh, I thought
it's
everyone did. I thought I was a...
no, a
Oh,
lot of
right. I
people
didn't know
you see
that.
walking in the ceremony, some of them are athletes, a lot of them are physios,
Oh,
support
right.
workers, because usually if you compete in the first week, you don't walk, because it's actually a very exhausting event, because usually what happens is you walk around 8 or 9 p.m. You have to get in the bus to get prepared at like around 3, and you usually don't get home till 3 a.m.
Oh,
And
wow.
when you are in the world of peak performance, your like sleep is dialed in, right? Your food
Yeah.
is dialed in. When you're in the arena, you can't go to the toilet, and you're not allowed to eat and you're not allowed to sit down. And so basically when you're an athlete at that level, you're very precious petunia, and you need to take care of yourself. So a lot of athletes don't walk, but because what we competed, I think it was like 12 days after the opening ceremony. So we got to walk. And it was like one of those moments where I just got to take it all in, and I got on TV. I was on the front page of the paper across Australia the next day. I was crying my eyes out. I really had that moment to like feel like everything, every moment, it kind of flashed through my eyes, and all the moments I wanted to give up, all the moments it was so hard. And it was really one of those times where I got to take it all in, and really appreciate it and truly be so excited.
Yeah. It was worth it, that kind of feeling.
Oh my God, so
God, yeah.
worth it.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Everyone listening to this should go and read the book. They should buy the book. That's what I think. I'll put a description. I'll put a link in the description of the podcast for where they can grab that. After that, after your book launch, I guess we're fast forwarding a little bit. So you've done the Olympics, and then you've realised you want to kind of show and help others with their mindset. Is that how the book kind of evolved, to tell that story?
Yeah.
How that came about?
The real conception moment of it actually was when I was working with one of my sports psychologists, and I would see him twice a month or once a week, or it was very often. So he knew me very well. He knew my story. Right. And so he had been through multiple Olympic cycles. He had sat across from dozens and dozens and dozens of Olympians. And he looked at me and he goes, "Danielle, your story is amazing. It would be an incredible book." Yeah. And that moment was like, this guy, he's here, he's heard stories, like he's heard Olympic stories, and he thinks my story would be good. And so that was kind of the moment where I was like, I should write about this. Realize on my journey, I was like, it was so phenomenal and bizarre and so like impossible that it just felt like it was bigger than me. And it just felt like I couldn't keep it to myself. Yeah. And it seemed wrong for me to just go on and live my life and not share it, because it blew my own mind. And I was nobody, and I became an Olympian. Like, how does that happen, right? Like, if I can do that, just imagine what we can all do, yeah. Right? And so that is really what inspired me, along with the contribution, along with, wanting to share with people, along with, I'm really passionate about talking to people about synchronized swimming, because I think it's the most amazing sport, and it's so undercredited. And it was a combination of all of those things, which led me onto the journey that I am on now.
Looking back on that kind of experience of the Olympics and looking back at writing the book, what did you discover, do you think, about yourself during that period?
Great question. I think I've probably spent about like 10 years or less, the last 5 years, like trying to figure out how it, like I figured out how I did it, but yeah. Like it's a whole different thing looking back how you did it and then explaining it to people, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because you're just kind of living it, and then you got to teach it, right? So that it's a different way of looking at your life. I still have moments when I look back and I'm like, how the heck did I do that? Like, I was so almost naive and brave. And I think that naivety a little bit, I think, and I realized this more recently, I think almost because so much of me didn't even know if it was possible. I think that's why I did it, because I think that if I actually knew that it was going to happen, I might have pooped my pants and totally screwed it all up. Right. And that's something that I've realized, and it's also made me really proud of how strong that I am. And it's given me so many experiences. I've had incredible experiences on the Australian team. I got to meet prime ministers and royalty and Olympians and world champions and billionaires, and go and do some crazy things. And I really believe that it's kind of helped me into what I do now. And I share this with people because I don't think the stuff that I talk about, not I don't know, you don't hear a lot of athletes talking about this all the time, right? And I think that it's important, and we get to transfer what we did in this area to, you know, what I get to do now. And even though I'm talking about sport, it trickles into every area of life. And so when I was moving into creating my personal brand and entrepreneurship, I was like, look, I had no idea what I was doing online first. I was like, how do I do this? But at least I have the mindset. And
Yes.
that has been the biggest key, because I think once people always worry about the how, you're like, how am I gonna do this? Whatever dream. And there's like, how am I gonna take the steps? And if we focus more on the why do you want to do it, and hold the vision, all the how is gonna work out. And keep working on your mind, because that is the biggest asset that you have. And take care of your brain too, because it's very important.
It's a really inspiring story. I would encourage everyone to buy the book, most definitely, and to follow you on Instagram and everything. We'll sort that out shortly. But speaking of inspirations, I'm interested to know what inspires you now.
You know, I'm really inspired by, I think we're living in a time in the world where you can either see like the gray, the darkness of the world, or you can see the light. And I'm always a person that chooses the light, and I see a lot of really epic humans doing incredible things. I'm inspired by my clients. I'm inspired by people like you. I'm inspired by all the people in all the little pockets in the world that just believe in something greater, and, you know, are wanting to work on ourselves, because we have this, you know, and I think all of us dreamers, doers, believers want to make our little mark on the world. And it's beautiful, and I love that. I think that it's that all of us with that dream that start to make ripples, and also knowing that when we work on ourselves, that's the biggest way that we can make a change in the world. And you know, and that's what I love helping my clients with now, because we create the biggest ripples in our life when we work on ourselves. And we create the biggest ripples in the world when we work on ourselves. And it's not actually outside of us, it's all inside of us. And once we look internally instead of externally, we really start to change the game, literally and physically in our life. And so, yeah, I'm inspired by human beings achieving and striving for greatness.
Again, having read the book, I know about the challenges that you faced earlier on. I'd really like to know your post-Olympic kind of that maneuver where you went, all right, well, now what do I do? Yeah. Oh, okay, right, I'm going to go and do this. And then what were the challenges during that time?
I had to face a whole nother level of working on my self-worth, you know, moving into a field of like, you basically what I did is almost like I changed sports, right? Like, and I didn't know this sport. I spent 18 years mastering synchronized swimming. And a lot of people ask me, well, why didn't you become a synchronized swimming coach? And I very much could have. And I still, you know, my aim is still to continue to be involved, but I chose to change vehicles, and I knew nothing about the vehicle that I have now been in for the past like 4 years. And I think facing a lot of imposter syndrome at first, you know, and I want to share this because people go, oh, well, it's easy for you, right? I think people do that in general. Oh, it's easy for them. No, it's not easy. We still face all the same stuff. We still face the self-doubt. We still face the imposter syndrome. It was just another kind of flavor of having to face it. The amount of times that, you know, I've wanted to, and again, on the Olympic journey, I've thought about giving up. And again, I think that this is really important. The thought and the action is very different. I think it's okay to think about giving up, right? We're all going to have that moment, but taking the action to do that is completely different. The times where I have felt like no one has cared about the message that I have to share and it doesn't matter. The times where I felt like no one's listening. The times where, you know, the logistics of working online were hard. The times where, you know, in the pandemic, it was a gift, but also a challenge, you know, I think for everyone's mental health and well-being. You know, the times where I go, oh, it would be way easier to throw in the towel and go get a normal job. Those have all been there and have been real, but I never would and I never will give up, because my why and my fire is too big. But I think that people need to know that it's normal to feel that. It's normal to want to give up sometimes. It's normal to have hard days. It's normal to have times that where you're in a rut. Like, just keep taking one little mini step. Keep surrounding yourself with the messaging, the mindset, and the people that believe in you, right? And even a big thing is, like, as you go for greatness, as much as it's incredible, there's a lot of people that are very intimidated by that because of what it makes them feel about themselves, right? And so and not that you or me or say anything about, I have no judgments about what people do with their own lives, but if in my immediate circle, if I'm doing all these incredible things and looking at the world in a totally different way, that can make people in my immediate circle intimidating. And that's been a beautiful challenge to navigate, of like, what does it mean for me to hold my light? What does it mean for me to hold my power? What does it mean for me to be in my greatness, even if I am worried that it's going to intimidate other people, because I know my why is bigger than my fear. Life would be so boring without challenges.
Wouldn't it just? Yeah,
oh,
yeah. But they shape you, don't they? It makes you into the person you are, I think.
Yeah.
And with all of that stuff, I know we're whistling probably towards the end of the session in a little while, but all that stuff, what are you most proud of?
I don't know if I've been asked this question before. And all of that stuff, what am I most proud of? Okay, this is the answer that I'm going to give you, but I'm probably going to think about this for the next 2 weeks now because you asked me.
Yeah, let me know. If you change your mind, just let me know.
If I change your mind, okay, we can come back and change it. I'm proud of who I've chosen to be, despite everything. Not necessarily of what I've quote unquote achieved, or what I've quote unquote did, but who I have chosen to be. Because in every moment we have a choice to choose to rise up or fall down. And I have had so many moments where I wanted to stay on the ground and I didn't. And that's what I'm proud of, because it's when we can keep getting up. That's what makes us who we are. It's okay to fall down. It's normal to fall down. I have failed so many times, and I will continue to, and that's okay. But it's me, who I've chosen to be, getting up every single time. That's who I'm proud of most.
Real lovely. Yeah, again, very inspiring. I love that.
But I will think on that if I change my mind.
Well, please do. Yeah, absolutely. If you just want to, email me back and say, no, it was the Olympics.
I made a really great, meal last week, and that was the most thing. No.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, we'll put all of your Instagram and everything in the description. Links to your book and all that sort of stuff. That'll all be in there. But what's next for you over the next year? Let's say you've got something planned out.
Take on the world. I'm getting married at the end of the year, which is really fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm running a retreat in a couple weeks in May, which is amazing. I've done pretty much everything online for the past 3.5 years. So being in person is just going to be the biggest gift ever.
So is this the thing I've seen on Instagram? Is this the
we're running a retreat in Bali.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah, so
That'd
excited.
Be amazing.
I think we're going to run another one in 2024 because we've had a lot of interest as well, which is exciting. Okay. And I'm planning to get more into speaking because I love speaking. Clearly, she likes to talk. So when I first moved into my intention was actually to do more speaking, and then the pandemic hit, and so obviously everything moved online. And I also wanted to be able to not just inspire people, but to actually help them make change. Not just to give them the great energy, but to be like, this is how you do it. And so I've been doing that over the past few years, and now it's getting into continuing to reach more and more people. I want to be able to help millions of people over my lifetime and speak more and use my voice. So I'm excited for that.
Great. All right. Well, we'll look out for it. That's brilliant. I do have one final question before we close, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a big one, but it's about, there'll be people listening to this who may have self-limiting beliefs and may have things holding them back from their dream, from their gut instinct, the thing they desperately want to do but don't know quite how to get out of it. Well, what would be your one piece of advice for people who can see a dream perhaps over the hill or behind the crack of a door but are unable to open it?
I would say get around people that will cheer you on, because it will change your life. There's going to be two types of people out there. There's going to be people that tear you down, and there's going to be the people that cheer you on. And usually the people that tear you down are people that have never done it, and people that cheer you on are people that have done it and are doing it. Because being around like-minded humans that believe in you when you don't believe in yourself is so important. And I am so grateful that I was in a team sport, because I had a coach and I had team members that I was accountable for every single day. And now what I do it, I know I have my clients, but it's me, but I keep putting myself in spaces with people that are doing it, people that cheer me on, and people that believe in me, because every single one of us is going to have a day when we have the limiting self-beliefs come in. Every single one of us is going to have a day when we want to give up. But when you're around those spaces, you calibrate to that. You believe in yourself more. They cheer you on the days where you want to just throw in the towel. And that is so incredibly important.
Danielle, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you.
It's been lovely. Thanks for letting me take the mic.
No, you're more than welcome. Thank you so much. It's been great.
So good.
Hey, welcome back. Thank you so much for returning and sticking it out till the very end. Well done, you. Congratulations. Thank you, obviously, to Danielle for her time. Details, socials, all that stuff is in the link in the description of this podcast, along with a link to her book. So as I say, please give that a read. I think you'll love it. The Unlikely Olympian is what it's called. I've got to show you, unbelievably, I don't know how it's happened. It wasn't on purpose. I've only gone and arrived at a golf course, haven't I? What will I do? No. Business. No golf today. We'll see. Thanks again for listening. A little gift for you. Well done for lasting this long. If you'd like to take me up on a little bit of one-to-one coaching, follow the link in the description and just plug in the code PGM20 into the checkout, and you'll receive 20% off all of my one-to-one coaching packages through June to the end of June. So yeah, if you'd like to spend a little bit of time with me, we could talk about anything you like to do with your life, to do with golf perhaps, maybe. Yeah, click the link and let's get something booked up. And of course, as always, as ever, take care, be happy, and remember, it's never too late to work on your mindset. Bye for now.